So at first I looked at this build and I was actually kind of like, oh, that looks pretty cool. It's a nice headshot AR build. But after a second, I was more like, what the F are you doing? What's going on, everybody? Mutant Cowboy here, back with another Division 2 video. In this video, I'm actually going to be looking at a lot of other players' builds. Yeah, I've been kind of going in, joining random missions, doing the countdown mode. Basically just helping other people, looking at their builds, and just kind of, creeping and spying on people. Doing all sorts of that fun stuff. So in this video, I'm going to be actually just kind of talking about what other people are using, looking at their builds, saying if they're, a good, usable, thoughtful build, if they're really terrible, what kind of things they could actually improve on them. And of course, I'm going to be, taking into consideration, maybe they don't have the perfect rolls, maybe they don't really have a high shade level, which, probably indicates they don't have the best pieces of gear and the huge variety that maybe they would like. Yeah, I'm not going to be just, naming and shaming people. I'm going to be blurring out people's names and, trying to cover up a little bit of their face so people don't necessarily be like, oh, I know that guy. You just got embarrassed on this person's video. Yeah, I'm not trying to get, that kind of stuff. And of course, there are two people from my friends list who made it into this video. Now, honestly, I have them in here to basically just get a comparison. Something that, I know that these guys play the Division, and I know they play it quite regularly. I know that they enjoy PvP, but they also do PvE. So I kind of wanted to, use them as a good baseline for where I think most players should probably be at in terms of what they're using. And of course, I also wanted to show you that, even if you are a person who plays the Division a lot, there might still be some room for improvement in your build, regardless of how good you think your build is. And of course, that includes myself as well. There's plenty of improvements that can be made to many builds, and some of mine definitely can have some improvements. I mean, better rolls, maybe there's a slightly different piece that's more optimized for the build, maybe it gives it a little bit more diversity. There's all sorts of options that you can critique and kind of claim as something would be better. But with that in mind, I just want to remind everyone, this is not to name and shame people, this is not to embarrass people, this is just kind of showing you what people are using, what the mistakes that I'm, constantly seeing, and hopefully, if you fall into this camp where your build is just not as good as you want, maybe you get to learn something, or maybe, you get a helpful tip that can basically allow you to improve your build yourself without, having to necessarily follow somebody's like cookie cutter format or something along those lines. Thank you for clicking on this video. I hope I get some likes and some subs from it. And I definitely hope that, we have a good discussion in the comment section. Maybe there's a lot of points that I missed. Maybe there's some build, strategies that maybe I didn't mention. Some things you guys want to actually, say that while this isn't, maybe optimal, this might be a really good option for people. Hey, anything that actually helps people and allows the, build diversity to flourish is always a great thing. But let's get into it. Alright, so the first build that I want to critique here is from Kilo. Now again, Kilo is one of the guys that's from my friends list, and I wanted to look at his build, at least what he was using. Now, this build looks to me like it was predominantly intended for PvP. Obviously, he's got Unbreakable, he's got a bunch of armor rolls, and of course, Picaro's holster with the ninja bike. Yeah, that definitely screams to me PvP. Now, the thing that's probably going to stick out to some people here is he doesn't have the contractor's gloves, and he's got a heartbreaker on his mask, and maybe Grupo Sombra might not be the best choice. And I'm kind of going to agree with some of these things. First, though, Walker Harris, is it better than contractors? I would actually say it's probably pretty close to being the same. I wouldn't say there's a huge difference, especially on a ninja bike build. Now, of course, you're going to give, I think, some weapon handling, like 10% weapon handling up, because, you're not using contractors, but you gain that other attribute slot, so you can add either, crit chance or crit damage to it, which is great. As far as Grupo Sombra goes, I think that's probably the biggest eyesore to me, just because, you're getting explosive damage from the second piece bonus, and that seems like the biggest downside of this build. And based on the amount of crit chance he has, I think he's only got about 50% crit chance. So I would probably say putting a Providence in there, getting some headshot damage for your Eagle Bearer, and if you optimize that fully, then you'd have 60% crit chance, a little bit more headshot damage, and you'd probably have a little bit of a better build. And as far as the Heartbreaker goes, I really don't see if Fenris has any real advantage over it. Yeah, you get the reload speed, but you're also losing 5% AR damage. So, that's kind of a choice for you. Of course, I couldn't, do this kind of video without critiquing Von Doom a little bit. And at the time of my inspection here, he was rocking his damage to armor build. Now, of course, there's nothing wrong with damage to armor. Obviously, you get a lot of multiplicative damage bonuses from basically building on these like multiplicative damage sources. So having damage to armor, damage to targets out of cover, amplified damage, that's all great. You're going to get a lot of damage. However, what I am going to say is, this is a Ninja Bike build, and unfortunately, the truth is, for an SMG or AR build, Araldi is just not best in slot. You need, obviously, 2 pieces just to get that damage to armor, which basically means that you're getting 2.5% damage to armor from each piece. It's not really strong enough to be called best in slot at that point. Now, what I would do is, of course, since this is Ninja Bike, again, best in slot for an SMG build is going to be Sokolov and basically just Providence. Of course, looking at the build, it doesn't appear that he has a 60% crit chance. I think at max, if all his rolls were like peaked out, he would have roughly 54%. I think right now he's got like 50 or 51, maybe a little bit less. So on this build, yeah, I think having Providence and Sokolov is going to give him more SMG damage, more crit chance, which obviously is important if you're running an SMG. If you're running SMG based on crit damage and you don't have 60%, that's kind of, that's not a good thing for your build. So focusing on damage to armor, I think, hurts that and limits the full damage of this build. Now, of course, if he went with Providence and Sokolov, he's not going to be doing like massive, huge amounts more, but it is going to be a more reliable, more steady source of damage and slightly improved. But overall, the build from Kami is good and usable, especially in PvP. Now, moving on to the first no name but shame, we've got this little mystery. Now, when I first saw it, I was actually kind of interested. Obviously, it's intended to be a full headshot damage build for ARs. And I was kind of like, okay, I see where he's going with it. But then the problems started hitting me. Obviously, the first problem that I noticed is he's got flatline on his weapon, but he's not using pulse or the tactician specialization. So he doesn't have a laser and he doesn't have pulse. So he's not pulsing anything. So this is a huge waste. Obviously, maybe his main weapon is the chameleon, but then why even have that other AR there? And then, of course, the other problems I got into with this build were just the rolls that he had on his gear. I mean, it just didn't make any sense. You've got repair skills, but you don't have a repair skill. You've got the reviver and a shield, so it doesn't make any sense. You've got full investment basically into like crit chance and crit damage on your rolls, and yet your overarching theme is for headshot damage. So wouldn't your rolls be like headshot damage and maybe weapon handling, or headshot damage and armor regen? Something along those lines. That would make more sense to me. But you're going with full, set bonuses of headshot damage and then crit chance and crit damage on your actual attributes. I don't know. It just seems messy. It seems sloppy, and that doesn't make much sense to me at all. The second, or I guess I should say the third, and probably the biggest problem of this build is, why are you going with a heartbreaker on your chest piece? Like, the heartbreaker should be your gloves or your holster, and then the other piece should be back in the chest piece, because you're losing out on your talent slot. So like, you're just wasting a talent slot on your chest piece for no reason, for really no reason. That makes no sense, and it's very dumb. So that's a huge problem. And the other thing is, I would kind of note is, why aren't you using Providence? Like, if this is a headshot build, like, why are you going with marksman rifle damage over crit chance? Like, it makes no sense. One of those pieces as a Providence would provide you much better results. So get rid of Araldi. You don't need marksman damage. It's not going to help you. Go with Providence, get headshot damage and crit chance, and then, tidy up some of your gear stats here. Get some more, headshot damage on them. Put some headshot damage mods on there. Get rid of that weapon with flatline. Put something else in there, and yeah, you could actually have a pretty decent, kind of interesting build. All right, second build. This one's actually not a name and shame. This one's actually pretty good. I like it. It's a armor-based, skill-based, crit chance build. Obviously, those are highly effective. Great for a lot of situations. Now, to be fair, this one's actually even one of the worst skill builds I've seen. Technically everything on it is pretty good, and I'm not going to fault him too much just because the shade is only 340. So you get a little bit of a pass because obviously you probably don't have the best pieces. But putting 2 China Light on this doesn't make much sense. If you're going to go with 2 of the Empress, you should definitely just make it a third, right? 3 Empress and probably just get a Hanayu and a Wyvernware. That would probably be the best choice. But yeah, it doesn't make, your chest talent doesn't make any sense for turret and drone, and having explosive damage on a turret and drone doesn't make much sense. And then, of course, having a flatline on your SMG, that's just really stupid. And looking at a good, I would say, countdown build, obviously going with 4-piece striker because of Ninja, getting a little bit of that additional armor from the Brazos and with the weapon damage, Picaro's holster, and of course running the Bellstone Armory for that armor regen and armor on kill. Yeah, I mean, overall this is a pretty smooth looking build. I mean, some of the rolls aren't completely optimized like I would expect somebody who has over 3,000 shade. This kind of screams to me like I was farming shade and I really didn't pay attention to anything else. Yeah, that's really what it seems like to me. But overall, the build itself isn't bad. I mean, again, some of the rolls kind of don't make sense. I don't really know if he's going for explosive damage resistance on the build or if he just has them there because that's the best stuff he's got. But, protection from elites, a good amount of damage, some regen. Yeah, I think this is a good, competent countdown build. Maybe not the best, but good enough. This one, it kind of interests me. I don't really know how I feel about the build personally. I mean, it seems like it would be a good, competent build. Obviously, we've got 2 pieces, or I guess I should say 3 pieces of the ongoing directive for the 4-piece total because of Ninja. And then we've got, 2 pieces of Fenris and then 2 pieces of the Brazos. So, I mean, we're getting some weapon damage here. We're getting some status effects. It's a good, I guess, team buff kind of setup. Now, I guess since this is for team play, it does seem to be set up pretty well. I think the chest talent might be a little bit useless. And what I mean by that is, look, you've obviously got a blue screen. So you can apply the status effects really without needing to waste that chest piece. And of course, because of that, I would say maybe just go with the Scorpio shotgun, Really depends. I mean, obviously, the blue screen is probably really good for, like, Black Tusk. But again, Scorpio would probably be a little bit easier to use and apply those status effects on a regular basis a little bit easier, giving you access to those hollow point bleed rounds a little bit faster. Now, overall, my main critique with this build would probably just be the combination of chest piece talent and exotic weapon. Now, there's plenty of different ways you could go with this, but it seems less efficient to me to do it like this. And why I say this is because, well, I'm assuming that they're using the blue screen and the chest piece to proc the initial status effects so they can get the hollow point rounds and then use the AK. However, what I'm going to say is that you've got 2 of the same thing. It's basically just double tapping that issue. My suggestion would probably just to go with like the Scorpio shotgun. Again, if you're going for like a team buff build, obviously the Scorpio is going to give you that amplified damage to the target for your entire team or anyone who's shooting at it, and it's going to apply the status effects. Now, that frees up your chest piece to basically, give you more damage or something else for your team. So I think that's probably the main area that I would focus on, using your chest piece talent to give you another team buff, and then maybe switching your exotic to the Scorpio just to basically make it a little bit easier to apply the status effects on a regular basis. And of course, we got a fairly generic DPS build here that I don't think is quite working as they would have intended. And we've got a Heartbreaker build with 5 pieces of Heartbreaker. Ugh, God, I just hate when people do that. It doesn't make any sense, people. And then a hardwired skill build here with the exotic holster waveform. Overall, this build, okay, it doesn't make any sense. You got the SMG here, backfire. No crit chance, no SMG, anything. That's no hazard protection or any healing whatsoever. That doesn't make any sense. That's a waste of slot. You've got your drone and your hive for hardwire. That's a terrible combination. Yeah, this is just a bad build, and my initial impression is that you probably just switch some things around here just to be different, and it doesn't work. Moving on, here we go. Let's see. Uh, Looks like a fairly generic DPS build. Almost 600 shade. Yeah, I'm gonna say that this is fairly good. I mean, there's nothing like impressive or amazing about this. You've got three pieces of Sokolov, a Walker Harris, Cheska, and a Gilla. Obviously, my first kind of initial thought is maybe to move that, change that Gilla to a Bellstone for armor regen, but that's the named Gilla mask, so you're getting the two mod slots. Um, yeah, overall, I would say that the build's okay. There's obviously some, generic changes you could do, like, Fox's Prayer or Contractor's Gloves. You're only adding like 2,000 damage to your turret, or I guess I should say to the drone. 2,000, maybe 2,000 K damage per bullet to the drone. You'd probably be better off with something else. But yeah, I mean, I can see it. I can see it working. I mean, if you're going to invest into that, I don't know. I mean, it kind of looks like this is like a PvP build that you're using in PvE. That's kind of like the weird thing. But overall, I mean, for a low shade level build, it's not bad. All right, moving into the next one. Again, we got another Ninja Bike build here with Striker, Sokolov, and Walker and Harris. Overall, this build seems kind of confusing to me. All right, so we've got a shield, and we've got the Confusion Pulse, whatever that thing's called. We've got some status effects, okay, but I'm looking at the weapons. I mean, you're over 1,000 shades, so you should have a reasonable understanding of how this game works. You've got skill damage, skill repair, headshot damage. I mean, your attributes on this build are all over the place. The setup seems good, but everything else about it just seems bad. Honestly, I don't know. If you're going to be using the Mantis, shouldn't you be? I mean, you don't have to use the decoy, but I mean, that's really the whole point. So I don't know. Overall, I would say this build is on the right path, but really, 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 really poorly constructed as of now. If you fixed everything in this build, got the rolls correct, maybe changed out your exotic for something more useful to this build, at least as far as I could see it. If you're using a Striker, maybe you should just be using something different than Mantis. Now, of course, look, I fully understand, and I can appreciate buffing up your Striker to full stacks and then switching to a one shot, sniper kind of build. But this is way too much work for that, and the rolls on it just don't support it. So yeah, it's a messy build. It's a good intention, but a very poorly constructed build. Okay, taking a look at another one here. Now this one we've got, okay, it looks like 3 pieces of Brazos, 2, okay, so, alright, so, I mean, off the bat, I'm kind of looking at this like, okay, you're only shade 73. So I see this Petrov, it looks like you've got the, yeah, Picaro's holster, probably Contractor's Gloves. No, those aren't Contractor. Okay, you don't have Contractor's Gloves. I definitely suggest getting that. Overall, it's really hard to judge a build like this because you're only shade 73. Look, okay, I'm noticing. Let's take it one step at a time. You've got an AR and an LMG preserved on your rifle, and Bullet King. Okay, Bullet King with. Okay, all right. Now I'm seeing a problem. All right, so you've got the Hermano backpack, Hermano, with basically it allows you to increase your reload speed and your allies basically like cooldowns when they're near a deployed skill. Gotcha. And you've got a chest piece that gives you reload bonus armor. So I'm looking at it like, why would you have the Bullet King on there? Because you're not going to get any of those bonuses. Like, you don't reload the Bullet King, so none of that makes any sense whatsoever. There's so many other better options for like a buff build. Like if you wanted to do a team buff build, this is not really how you do it. And of course, you know, if you're given your bonus armor when they reload, you don't have full armor, that kind of doesn't make much sense at all. Yeah, this is just, I don't know, like, I get it, you're Shade 73, you probably don't have the best pieces, but you're on the wrong track. You, oh, and I just, yeah, the other thing is, like, obviously Brazos, the 3-piece of Brazos is going to give you magazine size. Again, magazine size and your 2 talents on the Bullet King make absolutely 0 sense. Right? Weapon handling gives you a good amount of reload speed too, so I see some reload or some weapon handling on your build, and I don't know. I'm assuming that the Bullet King is going to be the main weapon, but maybe it's the AR and they just have the Bullet King on there for giggles. I don't know. But then again, it doesn't make any sense. Why wouldn't you? If you're going to be using the AR, then wouldn't you have Fenris? I don't know. Overall, I'm going to have to, say it's really terrible, but look, you're only Shade 73, so you got some room to improve. Definitely some room to improve. Now, look, overall, this is kind of the trend that I see a lot when I do matchmaking. Like, I see a lot of absolutely terrible builds. And I'm not saying, like, everything that I do or use all the time is 100% on par or just, like, amazing. Sometimes I build just crap just to build crap. Like, I just put things together that make, sense, but they're bad. Like, kind of like that Frenzy 400 round LMG build. That it's a dumb build, but like it makes sense, right? Like there's a strategic goal that anyone who's looking at it can see what the point of that build is. A lot of these other times, like the builds that I look at, they're poorly constructed. There's no real goal. They lack cohesion. They lack time investment. Obviously somebody's been spending a shitload of time farming shade and just not spending any time making a build that makes sense, and that annoys me. It's like you can find a shade farm and you can abuse like the in-game mechanics, but you can't figure out how to play the game and how to make it work right. I don't know. There's just something so slimy about that, and relying on like a team to basically just get you through everything and not actually have to really try on the game. At least that's the opinion I get. When you have like 3,000 shade, 4,000 shade, 5,000 shade, 10,000 shade, and you can't spend, like 10 minutes to put a decent build together to play with other people, like you're literally inflicting your poor build upon other people for no reason. Like even if it was a silly build, like the build that I'm using, where it's just full on tank build, the point of the build is to basically distract the enemy and take the bullets, right? It's kind of like, instead of using the decoy skill, my entire body is a decoy. And it's just funny and goofy to run around with, of course. Like I always like to imagine that people are watching me run around and just like punching heavies and be like, what the hell is this guy doing? I mean, it's just funny to me, right? But the build itself serves a purpose and functions that way. If I need to revive people, I can do it. I can go over there and revive them easily. If I'm just using my body as a shield for my teammates and basically just like sucking up the bullets, that works too, right? I'm not here to do the DPS. I mean, most players can do DPS. It's not that tricky. So I'm just here to allow them to do that. Obviously, when I'm running through missions and kind of like, I'm just joining the mission just to help people out because I don't really need to do anything. So I'm just doing it to enhance, I guess, their ability to get through the mission themselves. That's kind of how I look at it. But anyway, yeah, when you join a mission with a really, really crappy build, especially something like Countdown, and you clearly shouldn't be doing that, you have spent enough time to get thousands of shade levels, and you just don't spend any time putting together a cohesive or coherent build to actually help your team. I mean, that's just crap. Like that's just, I don't even want to say it's troll, because like, you control with better builds. You're just really honestly wasting 3 people's time, or you're wasting 7 other players' time in Countdown. That's just, it's something you shouldn't do. If you can't put a good build together, but you can farm shade all day long, like, don't play with other people. Like, honestly, that's the only thing I could say. That's what I've seen that kind of annoys me. You can farm shade all day long, but you can't actually put a build together that doesn't waste other people's time. That's terrible. But, hey, hopefully, you know, maybe that's not the intention. Maybe some of these people just really have no idea. Maybe they just don't actually spend the time to investigate these things, and maybe they just don't really know. So hopefully some of these people might see some builds like this, or see some videos like this, and actually, you know, kind of adjust and make fixes to their builds. Hopefully, you know, none of you guys are guilty of these kind of issues, but who knows. But anyway, thank you guys for watching this video, and I hope to see you in the next one.